How does it feel when someone you love opens a clear and unedited view into their own inner experience? When, in conversation, they pay you the glowing compliment of treating your presence as a safe space for all that they are? For me, it's a clear signal that I can stop being somebody and just be real. For 100 episodes of Psilocybin Says, that is what's going on here. Isn't it incredible to find ourselves in a space of unpredicated love, where there is nothing to be but real? You are listening to the 100th episode of Psilocybin Says. To support it, subscribe on YouTube and podcasts, and stay connected on Instagram and TikTok.
Well, I am wanting to know, how was the last couple of years for you? One sentence, go.
One sentence? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. How about one word? That's a sentence. It has been all over the fucking place. All over the place. But it has been kind of like the rest of my life getting better over the long view.
Kind of like us going back to these handheld mics after having the bell mics.
You take 1-2 steps forward and 1 step back sometimes.
That's right.
That's how you make progress.
Just the in between, the glue.
I mean, no, seriously, like our lives have been a lot of that, like big leaps forward and then hold on, pull it back. All right, now let's move forward again, knowing, learning what we've learned. So,
yeah.
Courtney and I looked at today. I looked at the Spotify. You know, we're kind of talking about this episode, what we're going to do for this conversation. And I looked back at our Spotify, and I don't know if we intended to or not, but our very first episode, I don't think we intended on doing that. I don't remember talking about it, and I feel like we would have directly recalled that. But we've published our first episode on the anniversary of our meeting, and
the day that Eric and I met.
Yeah.
For the first time.
That's us. Like, I mean us. We in
the
the
day
audience.
of our meeting. I don't know.
Yeah, the day that we met. The day of our meeting.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
I know we have meetings almost every day. Maybe that's what you're confused
right,
about.
There's a lot
We've
of
got
meetings.
A meeting today. We've got to get to a couple of them. But anyway, yeah. So that was pretty cool. And our thoughts around this 100th episode is that we're going to talk about us.
Our progress, a report card.
Yeah.
Of sorts.
Yeah.
No pass or fails.
Well, so, big part of this whole podcast and why we do this is because we want people to get to know us. If you're going to even consider coming into the community that we have formed together with other friends and members of our community, then probably a good idea for you to get to know us a little bit through our conversations. But this is maybe just kind of touching back on like the core of us. So, yeah.
Yeah, what's happened? I mean, we kind of tried to make a verbal outline of this before we started, and I mean,
everything's fucked, and they got fucked more, and then we thought it was going to shit, and then there was a light, and then we kind of like expanded on that light a little bit, and then we thought it was fucked some more, and then things got better for a little while. And then it was fucked again.
That was the outline.
It was so fucked up, and then it wasn't so fucked up, and then it was so fucked up again.
And then Eric was like, all right, we're just going to hit record. I'm like, okay, well, that's what I'm going with.
I mean, it's a pretty good synopsis.
It is nuts. Like, for you listening, like, when you reflect on the last 2 years of your life, a lot can happen in 2 years. And it doesn't seem like when we're in the moment that sometimes it feels like nothing's happened. Like, nothing's happened. I'm in the same place. Yep. My life is just so boring. But then when you really start thinking about it, a lot happens that we navigate each day and week.
For sure. And that's where I've been a lot this last week. I've been talking with you about how I feel like, just been kind of feeling like I am not getting a lot done, not doing a lot, because I think so much of I'm just used to things moving in a really fast pace. But when I look back, there has been a lot going on. We have gotten a lot done. It just looks different than how we have been maybe done things in the past. So,
yeah. And I mean, when I look back to 2 years ago, when we recorded, the day we recorded that episode, that first episode,
the 4-hour episode,
4+ hour episode. Thank you to all of you listening who listened to that.
And there's been a lot of people that said they listened to the whole thing. Thanks.
Shockingly, a lot of people, when you're telling your own story, it's like, who is gonna want to listen to this?
I think my story is pretty fucking exciting.
It's a pretty good story.
Our story.
Yeah. But that day, like, I was so nervous to record that. The only podcast episode I'd recorded prior to that was the Psilocybin Chronicles with you, which is no longer up. But that was the first episode I'd ever recorded besides that. And I was so nervous. And now, like, the fact that I can just start, when I think about recording a podcast episode, I'm not like shaking. It's pretty big for me. And I've forgotten that I was so nervous and would just blank. I would constantly blank out from just anxiety of talking and knowing people are listening. And now I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I love watching you improve or get more comfortable in that world of just recorded conversations with people. I've been seeing you do that here through the show, but also through the through stuff at Sanctuary, the workshops and you doing these women's circles and whatnot is really, I think, for me looking at you and like that it's maybe easier for me to see my own growth when I contextualize it in your growth, because I can see you as a different person. And I have seen how much you've stepped into yourself in so many ways over the last couple of years in particular. And you leading those women's circles that you do here in town, I think is the biggest example of that maybe. I don't know. I love you doing that. Just to kind of backtrack, that was such a big point of contention or stress. It was depressing to you in Jamaica that you were strictly on the admin side. You were always disconnected from the community and sitting behind a computer. And even then, I did not want that for you as much as you didn't want it for yourself. So to see you not only getting into that kind of role more, but being so good at it. I mean, people, your last women's circle, which, it was really nice. It was your birthday. They surprised you. A bunch of women surprised you, with cake and presents and whatnot. But just, seeing you stepping into that and that you being valued and seeing your value, it's, it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding. And then, there's lots of other areas in our personal lives where I've seen you make, significant growth. Stepping into yourself as a mother. I think being a mother of a daughter has had a big impact on you, has been, changed things and, other aspects of our relationship in life that we'll get in, talk to you a little bit here. I don't know. It's very obvious to me that you have grown a lot over the last 10 years for sure. But over the last 2 years, coming back here into our own community seems to almost expedite things, because we are regularly in sight of our peers. Whereas, Jamaica, we were isolated on an island. There weren't a lot of peers there. It was mainly employees,
Yeah. It's interesting how we can look around us and more easily see growth sometimes. I certainly, when I think of you and how you were day to day, a couple years ago versus now, it's a little bit like, what's the word? Not shocking, but when we got back from Jamaica, like the amount of self-care practices that you started for really the first time. I mean, I'm trying to reflect on your self-care practices in Jamaica. And
I did Qigong. You know, I would go out late at night and early in the morning by the sea and do my Qigong. I was getting into an exercise routine down there.
Mm-hmm.
Is weed self-care?
If so, then there was a lot of self-care. Just, I mean, the transition in moving and starting over. Moving back here was starting completely over for us. It felt like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even this house that we have owned, we hadn't lived in hardly at all. You know, we came back and repainted and did a lot of work. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we were thinking of moving or selling.
Yeah,
the
we
house
were right. We were on the
because we were ready. We were looking for a property in Jamaica to buy and live there and planning our future there. And then all of a sudden we're back here, and it felt very like whiplash.
Well, it was very whiplash. Yeah,
very a whiplash experience, and me being pregnant and Anna starting over and having really just this house and very little money, and just having to kind of like scramble to make basic ends meet. Like, whew, that was really, really hard. Back to my outline. But it was, I mean, truly, like, to be authentic. Like, I want to be authentic on this episode, and I don't want to just talk about like the good parts of our growth. Like, that was a really, really, really challenging, hard, anxiety-ridden time.
Yeah.
And it just felt like free falling off of a cliff for months and months, and with just with a hope and a prayer, and also a lot like that was coming off COVID too.
It wasn't just a hope and a prayer. We were putting forth a lot of effort to reconcile the situation. You know, there was the number of meetings that we had with our attorney and, you know, other individuals who, you know, were, you know, in support of us, there was a lot of work, even though it didn't feel like, you know, we were doing some sanctuary stuff by that point, but there was a lot of effort involved in kind of setting things right, which is interesting. You know, I didn't even think about this. This is, to me, really interesting. So we talked about together, you know, our car being stolen, you know, and how that kind of related to, energetically kind of related to what led us to kind of coming back to the States, you know. And do you realize that it was January 1st that everything was resolved? And this year, January 1st, when we had another major kind of, I don't know if I would say resolution, but change in our lives. And so that's what's been really interesting to me. You know, down there, you know, it was like my birthday. Mars was in retrograde, which I'm not an astrologist.
You're not?
I'm not an astrology person so much. But, I mean, it's like I've started, just like we talked about the crystals last week or whatever, you know, I've started to see consistencies here. And I think that's been part of my growth as well, is opening up to these other realities that I have been so skeptical of for a long time. And down there, like Mars was going through this retrograde. It was so powerful. It was like, it was waking me up, and I had to go outside, and I would go into these almost trance states with it. And, you know, I had this intuitive sense, or I was told, or whatever you want to translate it, that by the next Mars retrograde, that things would be reversed. Things would be going in the other direction, a more positive direction, right? And when Mars retrograde happened this year, it was 2 years later, we went through it, and that was when the car was stolen, and that was when our lives changed significantly. So that's really interesting to me. Yeah.
That is really interesting.
Mars, this whole thing, I don't know. There's anybody out there that has a handle on what Mars is other than just a red planet? Because it's as crazy as it sounds. It has spoken to me particularly in the last 2 years. But when I look back over my life, I can see that there is this kind of sense that is connected to that whole, like there's a kind of a fingerprint to it, it feels like. So anyway, that's been a really interesting kind of process to watch it unfold and see that marker through it all.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel like what just came up for me and thinking about that and the transition back here and really starting from scratch again after putting so much into our lives in Jamaica and that venture. A theme for me there for a while was definitely humbling, letting go of my perception of progress. Because I went back to working as a retail manager after having this director of operations at an international organization for a couple years title. And now I'm managing a retail store, like a health food and supplement store. Like what the hell? I'm not supposed to be doing this again. Was this dialogue that just kept running in my mind. Like what is this? Why do I need to do this again? I thought that was behind me. I thought I had grown. I thought like I was developing a career and a reputation of sorts. And here I am back. And it felt embarrassing. It felt like having to really set aside my pride and just do what I needed to do for our family. And that was really hard. I felt very grateful for being welcomed back into that little community and work life. But it was also really hard. Didn't feel good. Had to wear a mask all the time because COVID was still the full force situation, and like double masking at times, like while super pregnant and like hard to breathe. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I back? What is this? But yeah, that whole notion that we have of what progress should look like is all an illusion. Because I needed that experience. For sure.
And it helped to eventually kind of launch you forward again, you know?
It was really good for me to get back in the mix of people every single day instead of, like you mentioned earlier, behind a computer.
It reminds me of when after we were arrested and I had to go back to work at in the food service, you know, I was working in the kitchen. I was just like, how can this be? I went from owning my own farm and being this like crazy cool mushroom guy to being
Crazy cool mushroom guy.
Back on probation, literally wearing an ankle bracelet and going to work cooking burgers at a restaurant. It was humiliating, really. And then you would come in there with your family a couple times to sneak and see me because we weren't supposed to see each other. And like, I desperately wanted to see you, but I was also mortified at you seeing me, in that situation. And, as for me, like, there is just a ton, really. If we look back and really take an inventory, and for me, one of the big strides that I've made, I feel like, is just like this last couple of days where I've been in a bit of a funk, but nothing compared to what it had been like in years previously. And even just yesterday, while I didn't sit down, meditate, and jump up and be like, yay, I'm back. But, I took it upon myself, knowing that I was in not in the best place, feeling good about myself, to sit and meditate and just bring my awareness into my heart and just, connect back to the center of me as much as I possibly could, which was really helpful. And like I said, didn't immediately turn the ship around, but it was certainly redirecting the course of the ship, and it's paying off this morning. I can feel it, whereas in years gone by, I probably would have spent, I don't know, it would have been really intense and dark, and probably drug a bunch of people down with me, and would not have come out of it nearly as quickly. So giving myself props is probably one of the most beneficial things that I've done in recent years, and our journey together. I just can absolutely point at the time when you said something to me about me talking bad to myself, how much I talked down to myself and insulted myself, dumbass, and all that stuff. And that really, it set me thinking, and eventually helped me get on a different course. And it just, I guess, coming back here, I want to ask, was it? I know that the Bob Proctor stuff that we got involved in played a big role, and there have been other teachers in the last couple of years, and I don't know. I feel like that has been another really important piece of my growth. While I have always read books, read authors, and have searched for knowledge, I didn't, when it came to advice for how to live and how to think, I wasn't hearing it. I was in my own head. I knew what was right, even though it wasn't working for me. Clearly, it wasn't working well. I still had that very, male, power-centered, I know what I'm doing. I don't need anybody to tell me what I'm doing. And the almost as soon as I opened my mind and heart up to hearing other thoughts on how to think, it began to really bring about a drastic change in my life.
It brings up a lot for me. Reflecting back on when we were in Jamaica and how much I wanted to be a part of the retreats in some capacity, I really limited myself and didn't think, had major imposter syndrome, telling myself that this is your place. And behind a computer in this room, this is what you're good for. Don't even think for a second that you're good for anything else. You're not good with people. You're not good with supporting people. There's just all kinds of stories that ran through my head. And that was really, really painful. And after going through that whiplash of the moving back here, and really, being pregnant, I feel like had a big role to play in me letting go, knowing that I'm bringing we're bringing a daughter into the world, a woman eventually, and feeling like just reflecting on wanting to show her with my actions, the part of me stepping into myself and connecting, allowing myself to connect, because that really is what it came down to. I was afraid of rejection, really afraid I would put myself out there and people wouldn't like it, and I'd be told to step down, and like it would confirm everything that I was already thinking. And with Ananda coming in, I just really started to feel this in a very real way. I want her to see the opposite. I want her to see me like being afraid and doing the thing anyway. And when you started getting into Bob Proctor's material and teachings, I was very skeptical of that at first, but you had it playing in the background a lot, and a lot of the things that he was saying made a whole lot of sense and helped remind me, after being separate from the retreats and just doing the operational, like cold operational logistical stuff, that it was still possible for me. Like, it was still possible for me to, like, I am connected already. I just, once I realize that I'm already connected, then I can like jump on the wave and allow myself to be more vulnerable. And so what, like, I mean, what do you think it was for you that allowed you to open up to new teachers?
All that. I think it was just, that's a really good question. I think it was just desperation. I think it was nothing else had worked. I don't know where I came across his stuff, because he was definitely the one that got me into, kind of, what's it called? The new thinking, isn't it? Or what's it called? Like Florence Scovel Shinn was the big kind of beginning of it, or one of the new thought leaders. Yeah. And now I'm ready to fucking campaign for Marianne Williamson. Shit. It's like,
yeah, talk about a shift.
Man, oh man. So yeah, it's I don't know what it is. I think ultimately though, what is behind it is me, as I began to let go of the thought that I knew what was best for me, that allowed me to open up to different ideas.
Yeah, because once, like you're saying, out of desperation, like once we have no other choice, it's been put in our face, like completely unable to ignore the justifications of why we think this and that, why we shouldn't change or listen to people, and like, the whiplash that we experienced was like, well, no, really, you really need to do something different.
Right.
Really.
I mean, I had been exposed to Joe Dispenza down in Jamaica through James Godfrey. And that was kind of the first person, him and Bruce Lipton, were some of the first, they were science-based people that were speaking to, brain-heart coherence and law of attraction and that kind of stuff. And so that probably was like the key to the door. But Bob Proctor really, he opened my mind up, and again, it's like this whole notion of two steps forward and one step back, because I started listening to Bob, came into his work, thought it was really valuable, enrolled in the program, felt like I got scammed, a bunch of money lost, and then. But what I didn't do is I didn't just like dump the whole thing. I felt like there were people within his network that were selling, and they were unethical sellers. And whether or not he had an active role in that, I don't know. I've talked with a lot of people, or I've talked with about 3 people who I know and trust who have worked directly with Bob Proctor, and they all said that the dude has a heart of gold, and he really, believes and loves his work. He's passed on now, obviously, but so I don't know. I felt really burned by that, but I didn't allow that to for me to give up. It helped me understand more of how I want to work with people, and that whatever we build that is encouraging and supporting people, we want to do everything we can to ensure that it doesn't turn into, this is a story of ours that we've kind of, worked through in various ways, that what we are creating isn't something that can be taken by someone else and misused and used for the opposite of the intention of which we built it for, right? And we've seen that in a couple of instances, and I think we've done a good job so far with Sanctuary in just from go. This thing is open source, open forum. Everything is everyone's. We are creating a community that follows these basic ethical guidelines, and from there, run it. It was my purpose, actually, in when I was on the beach and Mars said to me, "Psilocybin says." That's what happened. I was down there in this trance. The planet of Mars spoke to me in my bed. I'm laying in bed, and this thing keeps saying, "Come outside, come outside, come outside." I'm like, "Fuck it, okay, fine." I'll go outside, and all I can do is just stare at this planet. It's just got me stuck. And then I go into this trance, and I keep hearing the psilocybin says, and at least the conscious motivation behind it was initially for me to put something out there that was fully, completely, and raw me, that it's all the opportunity that you need to attack me, and it's all the evidence that I need to say this is who I've said I was all along. And then you being a part of that kind of just naturally unfolded, because the same thing, what we are with Sanctuary, we're building something that we want it to be its own organism. We understand that we are very present figures in the community, and so it just seems right that we put ourselves out here in this raw way, this really authentic way, so that people know that what they're getting into. And it's just a further kind of manifestation or embodiment of what I really and truly have always tried to be, is unabashedly me. And that's what people over the years. I've had a number of people who have come to work with us, in mushrooms, and they've seen how passionate I am about the mushroom, and then not infrequently, people have mistaken my passion for their passion, and they're like, "Oh, he's so passionate about mushrooms. I want to be passionate about mushrooms too. Mushrooms are so great." And of course they are. And if someone really honestly feels compelled to be passionate about mushrooms, then so be it. Great. We need all that we can get. But the real root of the message that I try to convey in my life and in the work and the words that I share is for everybody to follow their passion, for everybody to be as authentic as you can be, to follow your joy. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But if that stay that course and that is your focus, to follow the divine inspiration that is within you, then you will have success in terms of a joyful, fulfilling life with people who are ideologically aligned, spiritually aligned. And it's seems to be working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's not, I don't want to ramble on too much, but I can just say real quick, if I could, that what I think why it wasn't working in Jamaica, really and truly, and why it didn't work, is because I did not really fully embrace and embody my authenticity. There were aspects of myself that I attempted to hide because of having been either ridiculed because of them, or having aspects of myself used as a professional threat against me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what one thing I'm really loving about Sanctuary, this thing that we're calling Sanctuary, which feels like to me this invitation to the people that we're magnetizing and they're magnetizing us together. It's this group, this container of inviting us to continually practice being more of ourselves. And what's happening with the minister programs, like there's so much to evolve there. We're just getting started with that, but being able to say, we really want you, minister, to have your flavor with these, playground rules of sorts and the code of ethics. Bring your flavor, because that's the only way. Like, that's the way that you will have relationships, work with people, other members, that feels good, so that there's not this forcible pressure to hold space, like for people that aren't in alignment,
or
with
walking
you.
on eggshells around people because yeah.
And like you say, like this podcast has been, when I mentioned that first episode, when I'm like shaking and I'm feeling like I have not felt allowed to speak freely for maybe ever. I've not felt that way, and because of communities that I'm a part of, like whether that's professional community or friendship communities, where it's just like just feeling stigmatized and like needing to be a certain way to be accepted. I feel like that's why I was shaking on that first episode, is I'm not sure if I'm allowed to be me right now in front of anybody who may listen to this. And I feel like there's going to be consequences, like negative ones. And it was really hard for me to see the positive implications of being me on that first episode. And that was the anxiety. And now that this is our 100th episode, and it's like every single day, people are messaging us or in conversation, people coming into Sanctuary or however we're meeting people, and they're saying like, you really helped me a lot just by being you and talking about hard shit. And thank you. And like, I'm really feeling now the positive implications of that vulnerability. And talking about our relationship explorations, talking about questioning the status quo in marriage and intimacy and with ourselves and other people. Like, that has been a really scary topic for me to talk about. And I know now that tons of people can relate to that topic. And I'm just feeling really grateful to be able to explore that with a community of people who are like open to listening and questioning their own ways of thinking about things.
So do you want to talk about that right now specifically, or do you want to, because that's been a huge shift. I would venture to say that's the single biggest shift that probably but I know I have made in terms of my energy and expectations and all. I've talked, I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with it. So much of this is, Courtney and I are going to do an entire episode on this concept of the divine feminine, because that has been a major contributing factor in shifts that I've made in so many aspects of my life, but in particular in terms of our romantic relationship and like porn and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Do you want to talk? You want to lead that conversation, or how do we want to get into that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I feel like, what comes up for me is reflecting back to not just 2 years ago, but 10 years ago when we met. And that was an intentional part of our relationship from the go, was our willingness to consider other options as we formed an intimate relationship, that, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a way in which we won't feel like we need to hide our feelings that may come up for other people. And maybe there's a way in which we feel free, which so not many couples, partnerships, withstand that longevity of the true feeling of authentic expression with each other. And that was something that when we met was really important to us. And it's been a road. It's been a rocky road of exploring that programming within ourselves and the stigma associated with not having a traditional monogamous relationship. And a couple of years ago, I just felt tired. I felt tired of being willing to question all of that, because it is a lot of work. Like whenever you're reprogramming anything, any type of belief system in which you really feel it's not quite right, it's not quite me, but it's all these stories that we've held for so long. Like it's a lot of work and energy to continue to practice stepping into a new way of living and thinking. And we had attempted exploring that with various partners, and it's just
separately, whether that would be like.
And I guess I got to a point where I just kind of was done. I just wanted to relax. I just wanted to like be quote unquote normal and not have to deal with society's judgments and everybody's judgments about us. And I felt exhausted with explaining myself and explaining our agreements with each other.
Well, and when so many of the people that we talked to would reflect back, their own fears and their own judgments.
Right.
And that is the majority of what we heard, the vast majority of what we heard from people. And it's like, it blows me away. Without going into too much detail, but like that some people would say things like, you should just go get a prostitute instead of trying to have someone in your relationship because it'll be less drama or it'll be less stigma from the outside.
Yeah. Oh,
Like-
great. Yeah, that's what we're.
Like professional people who we worked with said to go get prostitutes rather than
Because you might be judged by, and this might affect,
your credibility.
your credibility. So it'd be better. You'd be better off, like, sincerely.
Well,
going
guess
to get a
what?
prostitute.
Psychedelics affected my credibility for a little while, and now everybody's praising psychedelics.
I think you're missing the point, there, friend.
Well, but again, it goes back to what you're saying. That's why I want to have compassion on everybody in the situations that the reprogramming it's very difficult. And when you're trying to find what is the authentic self in a structure that is inauthentic itself, then you're going to spend years like peeling back the layers and trying things that don't work and trying to find, what is it that I actually really want? And, I don't know. I know that I know that I put you through a lot of heartache and headache in that, because it was, for me, there was a lot of back and forth, and that topic, it was beyond a doubt for since I was probably my first marriage. I was in my first marriage at age 20, let's say. And probably from that time, if not from that time, then very shortly thereafter, like this subject was the source of the most of my suicidal ideation. I mean, I thought about killing myself. I couldn't even tell, like seriously, like thought that was the only option to stop the suffering for a very long time, up until we left Jamaica ultimately. I mean, there were even some times, there was about 6 months after we got back that I still really struggled with that. And it wasn't because I felt like I was inherently wrong. It was because I felt like these natural, normal desires and impulses that I had they were perceived as wrong to the extent that they did nothing but cause pain for other people. And it is important to point out that those desires or that kind of push or that impulse, I don't know how to. I know that it's centered from love. I know that it was not strictly a physical, sexual kind of impulse. That is sometimes how it would, I think, express itself, because so much of our culture, again, particularly for men in our culture, love and sex are so confounded, and it was only in finally like letting go of all that when I was finally able to let go and not judge myself, but also not pressure myself, because I was pressuring myself like, you want this type of life, this is the right type of life for you, then you've got to make it happen. That's been my MO most of my life. That's how I grew up, was make shit happen. And so I tried to make shit happen. And as soon as I stopped trying to make shit happen, then it came out of my head and into my heart, and I could connect back with that love. And I found myself able to actually love the goddess again, really. And I originally directed all of that to the earth when I started to, pull back from this kind of projecting this onto another human out there, then I started to experience this like relationship with the feminine in terms of like with the earth. So like, God, I don't even know where this is like such a huge topic. And I know, like I had someone come to me this weekend and say, thank you so much for talking about, your struggles with non-monogamy, because it has helped me so much feel like I'm not alone. And I know that for men and women, this is a thing that, a lot of people feel really alone in this, because it is a topic that so many people are afraid to talk about,
Yeah. Yeah. And what you said about letting go of the pressure, what you said about letting go of the pressure to make it happen, like that's been a big part of my journey as far as this topic goes, is learning to listen to my feelings and communicate with myself and be honest and stand up for my boundaries. And that's like there's so many different styles of non-monogamous relationships, like I don't know, 100 different styles and ways to do it. And I think when you say that, when people say non-monogamy, they equate it with polyamory, and it's like there's just so many ways of that people feel comfortable and inclined to have to practice different relationship styles. And for us, one of our most important values is family, and that's been a part of our conversation since 10 years ago, is like keeping things together. And we've tried different ways too, but we've continued to come back to like, is this how we're trying this now? Is this contributing to our family health or not? Because the moment that it starts to feel like it's a stressor on our family unit, like both of us are pretty disinterested. And so because we're talking about our growth in the last couple of years, and like this is a big thing for me. Like we have, like you're saying, let go of pressure to make this relationship style happen. And like, I guess 4 months ago, it's been like 4 months ago,
plus
4+ months ago, we, or very, what?
Yeah, no, I guess, oh boy, no, I don't know. It's so crazy how I just, this topic is why my mother cut us off. Hearing us talk about this on the podcast, I have been told that I'm evil by my mother. I've been told that you are basically a slut by my mother, right? Like the first person in this world that's supposed to give me unconditional love. I have had this relationship format that we have for 10 years been working on, has been used against me by business partners, by people in other communities, and there is a huge part of me that is still fucking terrified of talking about it, because of historical stuff. So, but it is really important to talk about, especially since we have such a profile in our community. So, I just wanted to really precede this by asking our audience, to just have a understanding and compassionate lens. I think this is, an opportunity for us to grow and be stronger together. And it's also an opportunity for our vulnerability to be used against us as it has in the past,
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that, because it's so true. Like, we are being very vulnerable, and a lot of people who have platforms such as this are not willing to be honest. And then it, comes out in ways which are not helpful to anybody. But so, like, it feels, we wouldn't be sharing this if we didn't feel like it was a healthy part of our life.
And helpful to others as well.
We've been building and deepening a relationship with a good friend that we've had for a couple of years over the past 4 months. And it has greatly contributed to the health of our family unit and this person's family unit as well. And I feel, and like Eric mentioned, we're going to do a whole episode on the divine feminine and exploring that and all the different containers in which that presents itself. But I feel like I'm the healthiest I have been in many years today. And I just feel really grateful. And I feel like I'm really grateful for this person. And it helped me so much. Just encouraged me to be myself. And they're just so wonderful with our children. And our children love them so much. And it feels like what I have been envisioning for 10 plus years before we even met. This is what I've really been, my soul has been wanting, is like not just greater intimacy, but like just greater help too, like actual real time. Like when you think of a partner that you want to share yourself with and your life with, there's all these different things that go into that. And being someone that's actually like working towards the good of the whole in the unit is like, it just kind of feels a little bit like a miracle.
Yeah. I agree. It's I guess, what I would love to hear you speak about is how being in this relationship, that it's so funny that we had just like let go. We're just like, just forget that. That's just not, it's not happening. It's not a thing. We don't care, like whatever. We've got such a good life together. We have such a, everything is so good. And that's when it just appeared right in front of us it's uncanny. And that is a testimony to me, or a testament to me, to the power of letting go. But I guess what I would love to hear you talk about in terms of this episode and your personal growth, like, this has been, like you said, this has been something you have been building towards, dreaming of, hoping for, since before we met. It's very funny also that to me, that's very ironic anyway, that the individual who you were dating before we were met, who was married, and you were trying to have a relationship like this with them, messaged you out of the blue today That's interesting. But I'm just curious, like looking back over the last 15 years, however long it's been since you kind of started to feel like this might be the kind of relationship that would suit you best, to where you're at now and actually having experienced this for several months, seems like it's going to be a thing for a while. I'm very hopeful, very optimistic. Feels so natural and so right. How do you see this directly impacting your personal growth, your authenticity, your expression of self?
Well, first I want to comment on what you said about letting go of the idea of it needing to happen, and us focusing on, we really needed to come back together as a unit. And we did that. We really strengthened our relationship, which has not been linear over the last couple of years. Has not been a linear strengthening, but we came to a point of making the decision to focus on this right here in each other, and that's it. And that decision felt very wholesome. It didn't feel like this is something we have to do now. It felt like this is what we want to do now together, and that allowed me to feel that built a solid foundation. It helped me feel like you really do have my back, and it's okay for me to not be, I can express myself authentically in my needs now, moving forward, now that we're prioritizing our relationship. Because I struggled with that for a while. That was a head fuck, if you will, for myself, because I'm somebody that for my whole life I've pushed my boundaries at times way farther than that were healthy for me. I've been doing that since I was like 6 years old, and that got wrapped up in this whole practice of questioning the status quo, and being able to come back to center and just say, we don't, like Courtney, you don't need to push yourself beyond realms of, like, you don't need to push yourself into complete and total discomfort and anxiety. Like, you don't need to do that anymore. And hearing you, knowing that you felt that way too, like, no, really, just be happy. Like, let's just be like happy and not be trying to grow so hardcore for a little bit and build that foundation. That was absolutely critical to being able to relax enough and be ourselves enough with each other and trust each other enough, trust that we're being honest with each other. Cause I wasn't honest a lot. And throughout our relationship, just trying to do what I thought I should do at times. And that's, that's on me. And so, that's just really important. And I feel like, as far as moving forward, you asked me, how would this contribute to my
how have you seen this so far contribute to your authenticity and your personal growth, this relationship with this incredible woman that we have been with?
Well, I have felt rejected by the feminine part of myself since I can remember. I've had a lot of, and I know a lot of women can relate to this. I've felt rejected by women, friendships. I've had quite a few really close friendships that have suddenly erupted and ended. And I've felt rejected by groups of women that I wanted to be a part of that, you know, kind of like let me in, but didn't really want me there. And me finding out via other people. And I've experienced a lot of, I guess you could call it like little traumas with women that have built up over time to where I've felt it to be really challenging in my adult life to be myself with women. And that's been a big growth thing for me over the past, like, directly 5 years. But with this relationship with this particular person, I feel like I feel seen. I feel like encouraged to be me and safe.
How does that affect you, though, impact you when you're out walking around in the world without me or her there with you?
I feel a level of, it feels like an ease has been brought to me. I feel an ease in talking with other people, that like a part of me has been seen, a vulnerable part of me has been seen. Like, we've already been through some challenging things with this person. I mean, before we were connecting intimately on a deeper level, just throughout our friendship as well. Like, we've been through some challenging stuff together, and stuff that's like feels like icky and embarrassing, and we have all like allowed ourselves at times to be open about that, those icky parts. And when I feel like whenever we do that in that raw, vulnerable way, and we're held, and someone, we feel loved more afterwards, it's like I've felt a release, like a true release of it's okay. Like, it's you've seen the parts of me that most people have not, and that I'm scared to show most people. And like you want to be with me more. And you've opened up more with me, and I've opened up more with you. And so it has a great impact on like my energy as I'm walking through the world, and my confidence, like knowing, because, you know, when you're talking with people throughout the day, it's like, there's these thoughts that come in. If you only knew, if you only knew, then you wouldn't like me, or you wouldn't accept me. And so expanding our unit, and opening up our families together. And because that's a big part of it too, child rearing, like raising kids, and the parenting is icky sometimes. And like, we don't like ourselves as parents, like more than we maybe would admit. And being able to be witnessed in that way too, and work through those challenges, is huge for me as a woman and a mother. And not like being able to let go of shame around the momming part of me, that so oftentimes I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And now you're here as a mother and you're seeing me, and you're like in support of me, and we talk through the stuff. Like, that's been a big part of it, is I feel like I'm judging myself right now, and I'm feeling like you gotta be rejecting me because of the way that this went with me and my child, or whatever. And being able to talk through that and know that, no, that's not what's happening. Actually, that's a story within me. This felt like a big weight off.
Yeah. You certainly seem like you've had a big weight off your shoulders. Just in terms of energy and that internal critical voice. It feels like you're being much kinder to yourself.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
What about for you? How has this impacted your energy?
Definitely feel lighter. It's interesting. There's still that stigma that I have had some concerns about, which, is one of the reasons that we wanted to directly address this here, is because, this wonderful woman is a member of our community, and, we're at a derby party this weekend, and I'm wanting to just put my arm on her shoulder or something, or just whatever, just be affectionate, and feel restricted because it's not something that we've really talked about with our community yet, and it is still a very and it probably will always be a alternative lifestyle, not a typical lifestyle. Maybe, I don't know. So there's been some of that kind of reservation, which is the antithesis of what I'm about, right? I'm all about just being authentic. And then I have also at times felt that when I am authentic, that's potentially problematic. Like when I'm out in public and openly showing affection to both of you, or at the same time, there's been some times that we've gone out dancing together, and there's very obviously some creepy people staring at us kind of thing. And guys, always creepy guys.
Yeah.
Fucking dudes
Good
are
to
so
note.
creepy. Yeah. No, I'm right? Like that woman came up to us last week, and she was like, oh, look at you three. Look at you all. What are y'all doing? What are y'all about? This is cute kind of thing. And dudes are just in the corner
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's gross.
Well, that's not always true.
Well,
we had that
it
one
was
time the
awesome.
guy was
Say that. Yeah, that was so cool.
yeah, the guy, we were out dancing. This is a separate time. And this guy came up and he was like, I don't know what y'all have going on, but if you're not making a family, you need to make a family, okay? That's all I'm saying. This is just working. This is working.
That was only the second or third time we went out together publicly,
Yeah, that was awesome.
So that was very confirming. And I'd say ultimately that sentiment or that sense of this is working. This is work. It has felt relieving. It's felt justifying, because here's the deal, right? And I've said this to you already in the last couple of weeks. I can now look back and know that when I was in 7th grade and I had this just deep satisfaction at spending time with Aaron and Miranda, my two friends. I loved those girls in grade school. I was still very good friends with one of them, and I just loved seeing them together, how they helped each other be more feminine, how they they gave permission to each other to be woman, to be feminine. And I can look back at that now. I see that with you and her. And it's that same feeling on overdrive. And I know that my desires or my impulses from childhood were centered in love and not in this, porn version of sexuality. Mm-hmm. And I've said that, to you and her both, how being intimate feels very wholesome. It's not that, fucked up, unhealthy representation that has dudes in the corner of the bar with their tongues hanging out to their knees, And so, I really hope, in bringing this conversation up over the years, as I've tried to, my hope has always been that other men would find solace in knowing they weren't the only ones that felt this way, who were just like, it has been for years. And it's like never been that because I didn't love the person that I was with. It was, there has just always, as long as I can remember, I have felt imbalance, the most in balance when there are two women in my life. And people have told me it's because I'm a pervert, or because I'm a womanizer, or because blah, blah, blah. You should just go get a prostitute and don't tell your wife. I mean, like my best friend in Jamaica used to tell me to cheat on you and not tell you about it. You know, like this Rasta who's like talking about living upright and one love, and then telling me to lie to you and go behind your back and then possibly even threaten you with a venereal disease or some shit, you know? And so it's been really, I felt like it's been really important because I know there are so many men, just like there are women who are struggling to, embrace who feel rejected by their communities. There are men who struggle in a feeling of isolation because they are compelled towards this type of lifestyle. And I think that there's a way that we can talk about it and understand it as a pretty natural biological drive, pretty natural aspect of human biology, and a pretty natural aspect of human sociology. Mm-hmm. You have more support, you feel more just supported, than you ever have felt. So yeah.
Yeah, it's likewise with women. I feel like it's very, very helpful to talk about this for women too, mm-hmm. because there is this idea around, well, if my partner wants to explore feelings with potentially someone else, well, then that must mean I'm not enough and there's something wrong with me, or they don't want to be with me. And it is one of the leading causes of divorce, mm-hmm. I do believe, mm-hmm. is the seeming inability to have these conversations with our partners, and instead, like you're saying, just resolve to go behind the back mm-hmm. of the partner. And the person who you mentioned that messaged me, mm-hmm. Who I desperately wanted to have an authentic relationship with, felt completely shut down by his wife. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'd rather not know. I'd rather you be out and never tell me because I can't handle it. Which is devastating. That is devastating and that's, to me, it's devastating. Again, there's so many different ways that people have these relationships, and mm-hmm. everybody's where they're at. And that is a established way, is the don't ask, don't tell mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. policy. And that's fine. If that works for you, it doesn't work for me though.
I bet we're having a lot more fun than the don't ask, don't tell crowd.
I want to be a part of the fun. Can I be part of the fun? That's what I did not understand. Sister, we could be cool. We could be really cool. Mm-hmm. We could get along great. I could help you out. Don't you want some help?
Yeah.
Come on. Here I am, a single woman mm-hmm. with, mm-hmm. I'm bored. I'm let me help you clean your house. I will clean your house. I'm telling him, tell her I will come clean the house. I will help. Mm-hmm. I will be of actual assistance logistically.
Right.
And it was just the outrage that would be experienced. Mm-hmm. She'd take my kids, she'd take mm-hmm. everything. And that is a common thing with women, just believing the story mm-hmm. that we've been told, mm-hmm. that means this. Mm-hmm. And that's been the exhausting element of this over the years is working through that with myself, and trying to figure out, like, does this mean that?
I mean, a conflicting part of that over the years has been the fact that, I was making an effort to meet women and then bring women back to meet you and then see how things got along and blah, blah, blah. And like, that was just like, that's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. I mean, very seldomly, I think.
It didn't work very well.
And when I just like stopped trying and just gave you space, like energetically, then I don't know. It's just really incredible. It's really incredible. And I think like that's a beautiful part of this too, is that, she was a helpful part of our home and community and friendship before it turned that way, and so there was a level of trust there between the two of you.
Yeah.
Because,
that wasn't the intention. Like, I mean, it wasn't the intention to be where we're at now, like building the relationship with her. No, it was never the intention.
And I can say it, like, I love so much that I can say it and know it and mean it, that I had no designs towards her. Like, I was like I was fully in support of her getting back with her ex-husband and like, wanting her just as a friend, wanting her to be in a healthy relationship. Like, I know that I can look at the whole thing and say, like, I just was an observer, or I was, a participant in a friendship. And I don't know. It's just, there's a lot that I could go into that I don't know if it really requires or warrants that much detail, just in terms of like, seeing that shift. And just
sure you don't want to have another 4-hour episode.
We might be getting close, but there was a point where, like, I saw you turn on. I saw Courtney's like inner light be like, yes, yes, and that was so much more fulfilling, so much more rewarding than any other scenario that we've ever been in. And we've dated or been in situations where you were like, yeah, it's cool, we'll see how it goes or whatever, and kind of, but for you to be like, yeah, I love her, I fucking love this girl, and I want to spend time with her, and I want to help her, I want to be helped by her, and like, that is just the most beautiful thing. And then to see her feel that way, see her, because knowing her, and I'm like, we're obviously intentionally not saying this individual's name because, their privacy. We feel like it's obviously anybody that's here in our physical community is going to be able to figure out pretty quick who we're talking about. And that's fine and great, because that's a big part of this. We want our community here to just know who we are. We're not high. We're not trying to hide anything. But to seeing her after, watching her for a couple of years be in a challenging relationship and struggle with her own child and her own situation, and to see her feel supported and seen, and it's fucking great. It feels so good.
Yeah. And having friends, like, for me, this is a big, wonderful part of this, is having a couple close friends of mine who I can talk about this relationship with and feel supported, and like, they feel curious and like lovingly curious and happy for us. And that feels like, in terms of our growth and updates, having friendships that feel really authentic, where I can tell you stuff that is not normally, I don't have to worry about you telling me like, we'll see how that works out for you, or like projecting their own. That has been an ongoing struggle for me with friendships over the course of my life, is like major projection of their own fears onto me that disables me from opening up about things. And I am so grateful to have close friends who are in a place in their life aware enough, conscientious enough to like lift me up and just ask questions.
Yeah, be genuinely curious.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing I'd say, would want to say about this topic really is that I think I have identified the feeling, like I've expressed to you and her both, that I've had a little bit of reservation, like when we go out, like really like embracing like how grateful I am for this, and like there's a part of me that's reserved, is because I feel like I'm the guy walking around with a briefcase full of fucking money and everybody knows it. For real. Like I'm walking around with two beautiful, very beautiful women who are, I know that they are very authentic, very loving, very family oriented, very hardworking. And yeah, it's like, oh shit. Like looking around, do people know I got like $1 million in this briefcase? Should I have a bodyguard right now?
That's funny. That's a good way to put it. I feel very similarly, like walking around when we're all together.
Oh, really? You seem much more like nonchalant about it, and I feel like I'm like, keep it down. I don't know
to
if
the
I
part about just feeling. Yeah, I feel more inclined to like be like, look at all our money.
Yeah, I'm not so inclined. Like
you see this? You see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also see those three guys in the corner.
Oh,
creeping,
yeah.
you know?
Those guys.
So,
yeah.
But no, the friendship thing, that is the other really important aspect of my life that I want to celebrate. Yeah, for the first time, and I can't remember. I, honest to God, cannot remember the last time in my life. I guess it was like, probably like, even like in 2009, I only had a couple of real people who I considered friends. And man, it feels so good that I can think of like 5 men right now who I really like spending time with, and who I want to hang out with. And that has been very new for me. So, oh boy, there's been a lot of growth for sure in the last 2 years. And it is really funny how on the day-to-day it seems pretty slow in a lot of ways, but when you look back, I'm a different person. I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago. Thankfully so.
Yeah, I feel like more of me. I feel like
that's probably a better way to say it. Yeah.
And I know what you mean, but like shedding the crap that's not me. Just feel cleaner and more in flow, and I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the next 2 years and seeing how we grow together.
Yeah, we're gonna have
our children.
Open contact, according to Bashar.
Yeah.
Hey, I told Theo on the way to school the other day, I was listening to the interview with James Fox, the guy that did the First Contact movie. I was listening to him on, I don't know, Joe Rogan or something. And Theo was asking, are they talking about aliens? Yeah, it's like, you know, Theo, you and I hopefully live in a time where for the first time ever, it's probably going to be acknowledged that there are beings, extraterrestrials, whatever you want, there are intelligences that are coming to this planet and interacting with us. Like, what a mind-blowing, and it is going to happen. Y'all can mark my words. Like, it's happening now. Boom, mic drop. Go check out the documentary Moment of Contact. It is
on YouTube.
An entire, you can get it all over the place. You can probably just get clips on YouTube, but like an entire town in Brazil had a mass, like, not just sighting. There was like 3 days of stuff that went down, including the U.S. government coming in and taking stuff out. We are absolutely living in a time where, as long as the world continues, we're going to see undeniably confirmation that there are beings from other planets, dimensions, timelines, who knows how it's going to ultimately play out, that are coming into our world.
On our 200th episode,
we'll interview one.
We'll check back on your prediction.
Bashar. Can everybody send some mental thought, energy, some intention towards me and Courtney, and maybe even our partner to go see Bashar on September 9th this year, my birthday. Ooh. If you want to see me be authentic.
If anybody listening has a hookup to that Bashar event
in Sedona,
bring it in. We'll say your name on the podcast.
Say your name if you'd like to sponsor Eric to see Bashar, hey, look,
let us
I'm
know.
telling you, we will see, and I am possibly trying to position myself in the role. We will see an intersect of psychedelics and UFOlogy. People have been taking psychedelics, and not just in our current time, but way back in history, people have been taking psychedelics and encountering the same beings that we're encountering today on psychedelics. And some of those beings seem to be showing up outside of the psychedelic space. Chris Bledsoe is another incredible experiencer who has been documented. He has many, many hours of footage of entities, energies that he has encountered. He has been studied by NASA. He's been studied by CIA and all the abbreviated agencies. There is a connection between particularly psilocybin, I believe, and these galactic intelligences.
So there's Eric's predictions for the next
I've got
couple
more
of years. Yes, right. So thank you all for listening.
Why you cut me off when we're getting aliens?
We are really going off on a tangent here.
Can we have an alien girlfriend?
We are going into episode 101 now. This is really redirect. All right, another episode. Seriously, thank you all for listening. It's really been such a treat for me to grow and talk with the help of your all's perspective over the last couple of years. And I just can't believe this is episode 100. If I would have been told that 2 years ago on that first episode that we would be here until 100, I would have been in shock. So,
well, let's also celebrate our commitment to this community, this culture, this shift that is happening.
Yeah.
And each other. High five.
Yes. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for
See you on the
listening.
next one.